Hello, hello. Previously on 1940s and 50s background and environment art design. So, where we began with this project is creating six different sketches for the scene moving around and through a 1940s or 50s home domestic interior. This happens to be a small apartment or condo. And that's what I'm using for my example. I've got some reference images, which I've talked about in the previous videos. But from there, once I got my sketches done, sorry, a little bit more about the sketches. For these sketches, we want well-developed sketches. That means thinking through all the details within the sketches, down to the items on the desk, thinking about those items, how they're going to be rendered. And this is really the pre-play that you want to plot and plan everything that you can for this shot before you move into production. That means I'm thinking about details on the ceiling, what the tops of the windows look like, what the murals on the walls are going to be, my dressers and things like that. If they've got holes in them, what am I putting in the holes or the shelves on the on the stands? For this project, you might not always have to draw for 3D, depending on the reference illustrations and background art that you're looking at. But it certainly does help. To be able to get your idea and your point across, please be sure that you're referencing period-specific furniture for this, and something that looks like it's from the 1940s or 50s. From there, you're going to go through and you're going to start doing your color blocking. And the color blocking for mine is coming directly from one of my reference images. That reference image that I'm using does not have uh, any furniture in it. However, I like the color scheme a lot, and there's enough shadow and highlight sections in there for me to be able to work and apply those same rules that the artist was using within their illustration to the interior of my space to create a strong color relationship that I thought was pleasing and soothing. So once I've got my big pieces of furniture figured out, this is like, moving into your new home. You're going to get the big stuff in there first, and then you start unpacking the boxes and you start covering the desktops with all kinds of little things. So the image in the top left is maybe the best example of that. At first, there's no vase on the bench here, no little flowers in it, nothing on the desktop, nothing on the kitchen, no little cookie jars. And that's what I'm going through and rendering. So I'm adding in all that extra stuff. Now, here is where we are currently at with this. This is the update. So the update looks like this. So I have gone through last one, and I'm going in now and adding more little micro details to this piece. It becomes kind of like an I Spy game, right? So if we're looking on the left-hand side, we've got the vase. That's just green. On the right-hand side, it's got some patterning to it. Same thing's happening with the carpet in the middle left image here, where it's just a big green space. And now I'm starting to add a little bit of patterning to the carpet. And each time along the way, nothing on the curtains, we've got stuff on the curtains. No background gradient. We've added a background gradient in here, the bottom right-hand one. This took a long time to be able to get all these little patterns within there, but I think it was worth it and creates a really pretty shot from the exterior so the character can come and stand out on their balcony. And now, once I've got all of these details within my shot completed and I'm satisfied with it, then I can go in and I can start doing the lighting and start with, well, excuse me, I'm saying lighting. I mean, I can start doing my shadows. So again, it's the color blocking phase. I'm doing the big stuff down to the little stuff. Then I'm going back and I'm adding more detail to the little stuff. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add my shadow pass over the top of all of this. And yeah, I'm kind of at an impasse here. So if I was working on this within a studio environment, the first thing that I would go back and start doing is rendering out this church within the background and getting my shapes within there, which I think that's useful to be able to demonstrate within this video because it kind of talks about how to be able to limit the detail and stylize things. But at the same time, I really want to go through and show everyone what the shadow pass looks like. one reason why I need to go in and add the shadow pass in here is within this scene, it looks pretty good at the stage that it's at right now. By the way, if you're just tuning in, this is the image that I'm using to pull my colors from. Yeah, it's not an interior scene, but I've still got lighting coming from behind. I've got some shaded areas. I've got some bright areas. There's a good relationship or interesting color relationships within the space, and that's what I'm trying to capture here within this scene. So I'm in a pretty good spot. To go in and start adding some of those shadows to my floor. So altogether they look cool, but if we're looking at just this shot by itself, when we zoom in on it, it starts to look pretty empty and like it's missing some stuff. We definitely need some more details on this bench. And there's just more areas that we need to go in and start polishing and getting a little bit closer on. The shadows are going to help, especially on this big blank wall over here, to help give us some directional lines to be able to look through. You can see that the sun is kind of setting behind the cathedral type object in the background. And so I can use that light coming into the room in a very interesting way inside of this space. Um, my shadows are also going to really inform the shape of this table here, as well as the chairs. They need quite a bit more detailing on them. The couch right in the center of the scene doesn't have any detail on it because that's going to be mostly built out of the shadow space that I'm about to create right now. And yeah, once I start to get the shadows going on underneath all of the furniture and how the shadows are working up on the ceiling, it's going to look a lot better. I've still got some more details to do, so I'm not entirely done yet. Purple layer. And we can see that there's still those ceiling details that need to be made. But I'm at a pretty good spot. You can see out here on the outside what kind of details I'm going to be doing on this church cathedral type object. And yeah, that's going to have some patterning and some other colors going on the inside of it. But once I do the shadows as well, that starts to allow me to be able to activate the typewriter quite a bit more, so you can see that there's other little details writing on the pages, and just some cool stuff that I can do to really make this kind of stand and pop out in a nice, interesting way. So that's where I'm heading to next. Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's start working with those shadows and thinking about how we can work through those. So I've got my carpet here, and then on top of the carpet, I've got my two layers. So we're going to just color group all of these. Let's see, this is all teal. So let's just make all of these that seafoam color again. And I'm going to see if I can't get away with adding one shadow color to the floor. So this is where this painting really comes in handy. So for the floor, where with my brown, I can see that my shadow color is this green tone right here. And this should look pretty cool once I actually start painting it in to my scene. So I'm going to go in and I want to just select that entire region because I've got it all matted out because I built up my layers the right way. And now I can go in. I've got my brush set to 100%. I'm going to turn the pressure on the brush. You can do that on and off with this little button right here. And let's turn down the opacity to like 65. I think that's a good spot to be able to begin with this. Okay. And I know that there's going to be a shadow underneath this couch. Let's make it nice and dark underneath it. And then I'm going to have some type of shadow that's going to enter onto the floor under here. And it's definitely going to be shaded, but it's going to get darker the further it moves away from the light. So I'm still trying to keep some semblance of the the shading, realistic lighting, even though this is very stylized. There we go. Just working that texture just a little bit more. One of the cool things that you can do with any brush within Photoshop is you can turn the mode of it from normal. We don't mess with this mode like ever, and you can turn it to clear. So when I turn it to clear, that is going to cause this brush to become an eraser. If you've ever had a problem where you're like You select the eraser, then you end up selecting a brush or from your drop down brush menu, and then it turns back into a brush and you just want it to be an eraser. Well, this is your solution for that. All right, so there we go. Oops. Go back in, turn it to normal. Go under my couch again a second time. And you can see that I'm not really getting a good color going over the rug because the rug is too similar. So what can I do in that instance? Let's go in and let's drop our color down just a little bit further and see what kind of result that gives me over the top of all this stuff. There we go. I'm sort of cross-hatching it. As you can see, I'm losing some of the patterning that's on the rug, and I don't want that to disappear because that looks cool. Let's go back, change my brush over to clear, and holding down the brackets to change the size. All right, so that looks good to me. All right, so now we got some of that same shading that's going on over the rug as well. So let's pull up some of those details from the rug. I'm just clicking the icon layer sorry, within my layers panel, clicking on the icon for that layer allows me to be able to select that layer. And now I'm going to, there it is. That's the one that I want. Control X, nope. Right. Sorry, sort of picking between the two. There we go. So now we're giving it just another color within the shadow. There we go. Just so that it still appears there and it just is glowing a little bit differently, just to give it a little bit of interest. And that's helping me out quite a bit for what I want to accomplish there. So shading is coming in nicely. Let's go under this. And I kind of like this dark green that's starting to show up. I don't want to use too much of it, but I don't know. We're gonna leave it alone for now. I might come back and do some more on the ground here in a second. The next thing that I want to look at is my walls. So it looks a little bit strange right now, like this wall is painted blue. And when I need, so what's going happening, why the wall is blue is because when we look at this shading here, we've got within my reference image, the white on the snow has a blue shadow to it, and so that is why my walls have got this blue shading where the light isn't actually hitting it, but the light is coming into the room in like this. So let me go in here and add some of the shading on top. Hmm. Oh, because it's set to clear. I see. I change it back. There we go. So I'm going to keep this light, and remember, just down at the base, we've got another color as well. And just giving a little bit of line work, a little bit of texture. Let's go softer, where the shadow isn't going to be able to make it into the corners of the scene. There we go. That looks nice. And a little bit of smudge tool just to be able to soften up some of these lines that are going on top of each other. Let it fade away. There we go. That looks nice to me. So we're getting a little bit more texture, a little bit more interest that's going on within in the ceilings. And this is where those textured brushes really come in handy. I didn't feel it. So I want to soften that transition there a little bit more. There it goes. Let's get deeper into the walls. So creating some speckles that are going on just to be able to give it a little bit more interest and a little bit more tactileness. That's feeling good to me right there. Cool. I like it. Let's go back to the MB line art rough. There we go. That's a little bit too much because my opacity is set to 100 and I don't want that. 33%. There it is, doing what I want it to do. There we go. So that feels textural. It feels nice. It's a soft gradient. The lines, and the textures are still there, but it's not overpowering. It's not too strong. I do have ceiling details that I need to go through and make on this shot. So those are going to come in later on. But for now, let's go ahead and go through the same process on the ceiling as well. So starting off with 33%. I'm thinking about where the shadow, or sorry, where the light cannot get to. So within each one of these windows, even though we're kind of like a pseudo sunset, the light, think of each one of these windows as kind of like a flashlight, right? And if you've ever seen a flashlight in the fog, it's got a light beam that's going on. So it's going to take a sec for the light to actually come in and hit the ceiling. This is going to be the warm area right here. But in the corners of the ceiling, the light is still going to have a hard time getting over there. So I am going to increase my scale, put 2 lines right there, and one more. Let's go across here. Right now, it looks like there's like water damage or something to the ceiling. I think we can soften this up and make it look better. But now, that super bright ceiling that we had just a moment ago is starting to look more shaded. And before I get into this too much further, I should probably save out an example. Scale 50%. Okay, cool. And we can see what a difference this is already starting to make. So we're still going to have more details going on within this ceiling up at the top. Let me turn that brush. Notice how I'm switching back over to clear again. I'm still at 33%. And I'm going to start to just I'm creating my own gradient instead of using the gradient tool. And just sort of dabbling or stippling a lot of that stuff away. That's feeling pretty good. And then I'm going to see how far I can get with the, so I'm just trying to break up those lines that I drew a second ago. That's looking nice to me. And now let's go back in with that spray brush that I found. There it is. Oops, still on clear. Let's go to normal. Yeah, and that's giving me a nice stippling effect here. I think I'm at 133%. That's good. Then it becomes soft. There we go. And now we're taking out some of the brightness, even though that color is still there on the ceiling. It's sort of like we're using a chalk pastel or we're going really light with a color pencil over it. And yeah, man, you can see the difference that this is making already within this room, which is pretty cool. We're going to have some bright spots for where the light is going to hit on the inside of the window seals. Here in a sec, the blue walls within the shot now currently are actually this like yellowish color, and I'm going to make them look that way. But I want to go through while I'm working this process and do the same thing with all of the walls within my shot. So let's go into this guy now, and he is going to get the exact same treatment. I'm not forgetting about the coping down underneath here that needs to be shaded as well. We'll get to that in a moment. But I think you can get the idea that we're creating a really naturalistic, nice looking texture within the scene. So we're removing a lot of those brushworks and a lot of that line art that was going on just a moment ago, and creating something that looks sprayed, like we're using an airbrush or something on it. So let's start from the process again. Opacity 42%. We do so again. This is the wall area. It's going to take a sec for that that brightness or that color to actually hit. Okay, we've got a picture that's hanging up. We can add a little bit of back shadow on that picture to give it some thickness. Again, this is stylized, but doesn't mean that we forget about how our lines work or how our realistic shadows work. So that's feeling pretty good to me. And I'm going to go back and do the clear thing here in a second. But for now, let's go in and keep in mind we've got the light that's going to be pooling on the walls. There we go. That feels good. After I add the spray thing, let's go in and add the clear to be able to soften up some of those lines and some of those edges, going back into it. So erasing it down so that we can't see those edges and those brush marks quite as much, and it feels softer the way that we're looking at it. Cool. All right, that's exactly what I want. Get rid of some of those. It's feeling softer. Same thing goes with this stuff over here. Probably go in here and make this, oops, I'm on clear, normal, a little bit larger. Again, switching it over to clear, softening up those edges. I'm losing the baseboard, which I don't want to do. So I'm just going to delete that out here and drop it down. The baseboard is going to need another color. But let's go in, turn it back to normal, go over to my brushes, and now I have got a working method to be able to do this. I'm at 30%. So my walls are still going to read as a white tan. That isn't going to go away. We're creating a optical illusion for the viewer when their eyes look at this. So they'll still read it as a white wall, even though it's got all this blue on it. It's not going to hurt it. So I hope that this inspires you guys to think a little bit more about the color combinations that you're using. I think most starting artists would look at a wall like this and say, okay, well, it's tan, then the shadow color on the wall obviously needs to be like a dark brown, and that just looks not too nice. We've got some other options and some other tools within our kit that are going to feel and look quite a bit better. All right, so there's that back wall. Let's go in and what is this one? Oh, that's part of the kitchen wall. Okay, so we'll deal with that one in a second. All right, now we got the floor. I do want the floor to have some floorboards and things on it as well, so that's going to have some more line art and texture. But for now, let's go in, use that dark green color, and start painting in the floor details. I'm at 30% or 42 with my brush. Go back up to the line art brush. Okay, so each time I know one of my key kind of compass points when I'm doing this is that the light is not going to get into the cracks. So if you're wondering where do I even begin to put my shadows on just a flat wall, the cracks are where two different planes meet, a vertical and a horizontal in this case. That's a good spot to go in and add a shadow. It's a good kind of compass benchmark for this stuff. The other interesting thing about shadows is they tend to be a lot darker right around where the object meets with the ground. So if you got a shadow coming off of that chair, it always works pretty good to do just a little tighter shadow as the chair starts to move back. So we've got oops, that one. Let's give it just a little bit more interest and make this one totally dark green on the ground. That feels pretty good to me. Again, we've got another object that's connecting with the floor. So that's always my starting point. And now we've got the light that's dissipating as it enters into the room. Let's go in, and my opacity was up to 100. Let's go down to 40%. And let's start just sort of doing washes. And I'm using my brackets to get the brush smaller while I'm doing this. That's going to be my heat area right there. And have a little bit of a shadow right in that section. And that's all feeling pretty good to me. I think we can shade this section just a little bit more, give it a green wash. And we're starting to get into something that's feeling pretty good here. We've also got the light that's not quite going to make it to the ground. All right, cool. That feels good. Let's see if we can't go in and use that same clear approach on the floor as well, just to be able to soften up some of those shapes here and there. A little bit of it right around here. Soften this up wherever I can see those lines really starting to show. This is a little bit too bright, or a little bit too dark, sorry. There we go. So it's in there. That's feeling pretty good to me. I like it. I've still got my highlights that I could go in and add to this later on to be able to brighten some stuff up a little bit more. But let's use the textured spray where I think I need to. So I'm at 40% with the textured spray here. Oh, I'm on clear again. Darn, I did this last time. All right, there we go. Now we're getting that spray in there. And this is a real nice subtle brush to be able to add a little bit of visual texture and noise. It's feeling pretty good. There we go. Cool. Feels good to me. Let's click off of it and let's have a look. All right. So between that one and that one, yeah, we're starting to get some pretty good lines. Let's see here. This little section here, edit, transform, and warp. I just want the lines to work with the shape of the room just a little bit better so that they're moving with the perspective. They were off a little bit. Cool. Again, we're going to add some wood grain over the top of the over the floorboards later on. But we've got a pretty good working system at this point to go through and start messing with this floor over here as well. So I'm on the green. Let's just keep going forward with the green. And line art brush. 40%. There we go. And let's get close to the walls each time. There we go. It's feeling good, but we're going to go through that same process, turn it on to clear, soften it up in some areas where I think I need to. Back here. Yes, that feels right. Soften this up. There you go. That's feeling good. Last thing, turn it off of clear back to normal. Got it right this time. Texture spray. There we go. It's feeling good to me. Let me zoom in a little bit closer. Looks good. We've got a good amount of texture in there, some brushwork that's still visible. Um, Grab this, go back up to the line art. The reason why I'm doing this, we've got some areas like the curtains. They're at 100, good. I just need a texture or some light underneath them. And this corner isn't really going to get much light. Base of the chair, and then the base of this object too, just to be able to ground it just a little bit more is going to help a lot. Just adding that little bit of outline and a little bit of shadow right around the base of it. Yeah, that feels good. Cool. I'm liking the way that this is going. And you can see that this is a pretty fast process. I've worked through the ground and the walls on two of my shots so far, and I'm going to go through and repeat this process for all the items within the shot. So this is kind of making me want to go back around to this rug and add, now that we've got the process really kind of figured out and up and running, to add some more of that gradient and that dark color over the back of the rug too, just to be able to create a little bit more of a gradient of light like we're doing with this wall over here. But for now, onwards, let's knock this wall out. Next layer, using my brush tool on normal, let's bring it down to 41%. Sorry, I'm a little bit too far out right now. I'm working too broad. Okay. Notice that I'm not getting too tight with any of this art or any of my layers. I'm still working really wide. This works for me because I went through and I made sure to have good line art and used the pen tool for the majority of the shapes that I created. So now I'm adding texture into my scene. So there's a little seam right here for where these guys live at. And we said that we're going to do a different color on the floorboards. I'll go back and that'll be another pass. And I hope I remember. I'll remember later on. All right, getting that. And now we've got a big old wall here, 40%. Let's go down to 17%. Shadows pulling down here in the base. We'll be able to clean up that repeating line there. Just a moment with the clear version of the pen. The gradient so that we're sort of creating a spotlight on where our character is going to be. sort of cross-hatching this in. Not much of a painter, but I can use some Prismacolor. There we go. So we're giving it that chalky kind of feel as if we're using traditional mediums. All right, this is fun, man. All right. So we've got a lot of texture that we've created there. Let's go in and let's just drop it out. Again, wherever I'm seeing hard lines, I can go up a little bit in my pressure, 38% work well. So wherever I'm seeing, oh, let's go in higher, 71. There it is. All right, so wherever we're seeing some clear and defined brush strokes or pools of color, I want to soften those up a little bit. There we go. So up here we're getting some rogue strikes. I just want to get those tamed, sort of like, slicking down your hair. Same thing's going to happen up in here. This is pretty messy. And me sort of stippling and working these brush textures. All right, that's still pretty rough over there. I think I'm going to use the smudge tool down here just to soften it. Haven't used the smudge tool hardly at all. Okay. Let's go in now. I'm using the regular eraser. Turn my opacity down. I'm on the soft brush. I'll push all that back a little bit. I think it's a little bit too strong. There we go. Older I get, the more I learn that less is more sometimes. Okay, cool. That's feeling much, much better to me. Let's go in here now and go over it. Oh, I'm on clear again, darn it. All right. And then go over it with that line tool. There we go. Too much. Okay. Yep, I like it. Uh, zoom out and just check it out. Okay. I think that's working. Once we get the highlights in there, I think it'll be better. We'll see. There might be some changes that are heading the way for that particular wall, but I think we're starting to get the idea of how this is going to come together. Now that makes me want to go back into this one and drop some of that back just a little bit. There you go. So it's still there, but a little bit more subtle. That'll work. Much better. Okay, cool. So we got the floors, the walls. go in and let's do the desk next. So this is where I'm going shopping for colors. We've got two different color ranges within here. We've got a purple, really dark purple, and then sort of a reddish color. So I'm going to build this with all three of these colors in mind. I'm going to start with sort of a middle tone, and we still got a highlight to do on this table. So I'm just going to left click by holding Control on the icon to be able to select that layer. And let's go in and let's do that same process again and see how this applies to furniture and not just big blank walls. All right, opacity is up to 100%. I already know what this desk looks like. It's a real easy, simple shape. But we got some light that's not going to quite get under the outside of it. That's just drawing a T shape to decide, just make a decision, right? Just make a choice sometimes about where the light's going to hit at on these objects. There we go. So this is a nice round desk. The vase that's sitting on the table of this desk, that orange one, is supposed to be usually glass. So it would have light that's coming through it, but we're still going to ground all the objects that are on the desk. So just like I was doing with any stuff that's on the where the desk is touching the ground, I'm going to do the same thing with this object with anything that's touching on the desktop. So that means my coffee gets a grounding shadow. This guy gets a grounding shadow, and he's going to have some light that's going to go back over him. And even though this is see-through, I'm going to ground this with a line underneath it. We are going to have some light that's going to peel off of this thing here in a second. But for now, that's feeling pretty good. So we've got that color in there. I've got an option. I could go through and I could render this one further, but I want to develop all of this stuff in tandem with itself. So I'm going to leave, I do want to go back. I'm going to do a couple different passes with that desk within my shadow range. But for now, let's go in, let's create a new layer and make sure that I do the same shadow steps on this disk as well. There's that T shape again, just kind of partitioning off where it is I want the shading to be. I'm at 76%, so I'm pretty close to dark here. And this is why this method becomes so cool, to be able to work it a few times with the various colors and shades. We're going to start to see some interesting stuff happen within the shadows, and it's going to look cool. I'm excited. I always like doing this. There's some shadow back here at the base, even though it's got a light. We have some shadow in there. That works. Big difference. All right, so we said we're going to develop everything at once. We got three different, really four instances of that table. Don't forget about the top left one. So I want to work the same colors in shadow space, creating a new layer on top of my base flat color. Go all the way up to 100 here for this guy. I want the wood table, or sorry, this table shape to be made of wood. There we go. A little bit of shading there. Same thing over here in the bottom right hand or the bottom left of where the vase is going to be. That looks good. Don't forget about it. It's going to be important to keep those details consistent. And now we've got this guy. So this one, we've already learned what is just off the screen here, and we can do some cool stuff with that shading. That's going to come from the vase or vase in a moment. We've got the light coming in from the left-hand side and moving forward. That'll work for me and give me some good directional lines to be able to break up this otherwise very boring shape form here. Wood grain is probably going to be a detail on this. Got our coffee pot. Looking pretty good. So let's go back to that drawing board and see what else we can get from my reference image. So we had a really dark color that's being used in there, as well as a dark red. Let's go with the really dark color next. This one, that super dark purple. And let's start at the beginning. So grab it, go over, and let's see just how we feel about adding some of that dark purple. I'm doing this on a new layer so that I'm practicing non-destructive editing. There we go. That feels pretty good. A nice dark layer right around the base of this thing where the light is not going to hit, just to be able to ground it. 100 using a fuzzy brush. I want that to be a nice sharp line. There we are. And let's use this guy. Yeah, no smoothing's turned on, so that's like the ugliest line ever. Smoothing. Got a highlight layer that we're going to end up doing here in a little bit, but now I can mess with that grounding just a little bit more here and there. And now let's go in here and I'm going to turn this down from 100 over to 30%. There we go. Now we're cooking with hot sauce. That feels pretty good, but we're running into that same thing that we did before where we're starting to get these really clear lines here. So that means we're back to using the clear brush and erasing some of it out so that I'm not getting quite such a harsh line. There it goes. That looks a little bit better. Zoom out, and then we're getting a nice little gradient that's working there. Cool. That's working for me. So that makes me think if I use my texture spray, still set to clear. Let's go back to normal. And probably get away with creating 100. A little bit of color up on the top of this thing. So we're creating sort of a gradient. Push this forward. Feels good to me. Yeah, softening it up just a little bit more. I like it. That feels good. Now let's go in and apply those same rules to the other one. Okay, so that's feeling a little bit darker. Let's go in here. Let's get that dark color again. There it is. Back up. And one layer on top, we're going to increase the opacity. Smoothing set to 25. We're at 71%. That's where I want to be. Go. Okay, let's soften it down from 100 to 28%. There we go. So that's quite a bit darker, but not too dark because it is further back within the shot. And that's why we do it on its own layer. Okay. The atmospheric perspective. It's not as dark because it is further away from the shot. So it looks like without it. So it needs it, but it doesn't need to be as dark as the colors that we're seeing at this mid-range here. There's just too much distance that I'm describing within that shot. That feels good to me. And now we got our third desk shot. Oh, let's not forget about this guy over here. Same rules. So this one's super up close. What am I at? 28%. Let's go to 59. Just darkening that up around the base. Anything else that I can do with this? Not too much, really. Let's go in and grab our pure purple. And what I want to do here is go to that previous layer, down to the texture spray. We're just adding a little bit of it so that we can create some more contrast and a gradient moving across that desktop. That looks better. Nice. I like where that's headed. Okay. So one of the things that I noticed with a lot of starting draw artists and illustrators is when you guys get into shading, it looks like everything is done with a like a spray can, which I am using a spray can right now, but everything becomes really soft and sort of hazy. And I don't want that to happen with what it is, with the way that you're rendering. Try to be, oops, a little bit more intentional, which I'm definitely not being right now. Try to be more intentional with the way that you're rendering. You notice how within this shot right here, I've got an overhead shot. We've got something coming off the scene, but I'm drawing shapes, right? So I'm rendering clear and concise shapes in my shot. There's the shadows. Instead of leaving everything completely fuzz. It's going to work. Again, grounding shadow. Take the opacity down to like 24%. And because we're so up close on this, I'm going to pull that shadow color just a little bit further out. And now we can really start to play with that purple, the previous level with the spray can. At 24%, I want to go up from there. 65 will work. Can barely see it, but it will visually make a difference as we start to zoom back on this shot. And again, I'm just creating a gradient across here. Got a big stack of paper over to the left. I could probably paint in the paper stack, but I don't think it needs it for this shot. When I was a environment and concept artists at an animation studio in China. They were, there we go, that right up next to the edge. That'll work. They were always really tricky whenever they were doing the shots about not moving any of the objects. So when they would move the camera through the space or through the scene, wherever the character was at, they would just move the character around or the camera around the character. And this created for a lot of really kind of ugly background shots. And I had to come in and sort of ask the camera operators for the animated TV show and to start moving objects around so that you're creating a good composition. The composition first, always and forever, with the distance of objects and things like that. And it really does make a big difference. So we've got our desktop, our first pass on the desktop done. We've got stuff happening. Need to go in and do the rug here on the left-hand side as well. Probably got some highlights that I need to create. There's some more stuff that needs to happen on the mural, of course. We can get into that here in just a second. Let's go ahead and knock that guy out, but let's do the rugs first. Okay. Okay, so with our lovely MB spray paint, we're going to use that to create a gradient and give that rug some real texture. Yeah. Okay. Let's go into this one and do the same thing real quick. Then I want to do some tricks with the rug. That's working. That feels good to me. Now let's go in with our rug details. And I'm going to do the same thing with those guys. Oh, get a little closer to see this one. There you go. That looks good on the ground, but then we're losing some of those details, the extra details that I put on the rug. So I want to bring those back. It's cool having a gradient move through there, but there is some extra details on the rug. So now that we're getting an idea of what that rug is going to look like, let's take those other details and try some other colors with them. Color overlay, tan. Yeah, it's not bad having the tan on there. Our purple's too dark. Brown is okay. Yellow is too yellow. I kind of like the super blue now. I didn't like it before. It was too bright. Now that we've kind of introduced something similar to that. All right, it's kind of working for me. Okay, that feels good. Okay, Let's go to just dropping down the visibility on those blue marks just a little bit so that they're still there, but they're not quite screaming as much. Same thing with these guys in here. We really want to drop those down. So we're getting the illusion of detail without it shouting in our face. That looks a lot better, and we're getting a little bit of color differentiation there, which is what I want. Just toning it down. That's working pretty well for me. So let's see if we can't do the same thing with these objects where they feel a little bit more connected with the green underneath. Right now, they just feel a little drawn on there, sloppily. There we go. That's integrating it quite a bit better. Do it with this one. Just softening up some of those edges. They're still there. The audience is still going to read it as a shape. It's not quite as strong as it was. And there we go. That looks clean and it looks like a carpet. Heck yeah. That's what we want. So on the desk, there is a burgundy color that I could put in there. I think we'll go through and do the highlight color on the desk, and then make the call about whether or not to do that. The next thing that I would work on is the couch and knocking out that couch. I think the couch is a good 3D object to show you guys kind of let's test this process, this working method that we've developed. Let's give it an orange color just so I can find it visually a little bit easier. And for the couch, all right. Sort of loading in my brain what the shape of it looked like. It's got those hard edges. That's where the seam's at. Okay, I can mess with that. What's the shadow? So for that teal color, where are we pulling that teal from? I think the teal, I think it's this. The color theory on it's kind of weird. So, all right. Yeah, that's definitely that teal color. I don't know. We've got a highlight, but we don't really have any lowlights. But we do have on this aspen tree some big shadows that are happening there, which I could put it on the couch, but I'm worried that that again is going to draw sort of too much attention to this couch area. And we'll see how it goes. That's one of the things, one of the great parts about working in Photoshop, right? You can always go back and adjust your colors. There it is later on. Let's see here. We're up to 202 layers within the scene, working in that non-destructive editing method, becoming a little bit of a pain in the butt to turn on and off the reference image. But for this one, man, let's go in and I'm going to shade it at 100. And then I'm going to drop that shading down to 42%, whatever I make. But I just need to make some choices right now on this couch. All right. Oh, and I'm on clear. There we go. I've got my first line. It's happening. Second line on the couch. Give the feet some color. We've always got a highlight pass coming up later on. But for now, let's go in and let's just commit to some stuff on this guy. That's a little bit too thick for me. Here we go. Thinner line. Nice. Got us around the curve, down to the bottom. Let's get this curve in here. I think that's a really nice line. I was on my game when I was doing my sketches. I love when that happens. There we go. And line going back. So all of these lines that I'm doing right now are not really. Okay. I've got my core baseline. So let me turn off the. Okay, so that's enough for me to be able to. I'm going to leave those there. Let's start working on another layer underneath those guys, a little bit lighter. All right, let's go back down to 50 or 40%. Next up, we've got our shaded sections. So we know where those pillows are at. We can always ground the pillow areas. That works well for me. We got underneath the seam, and then all of this is going to be shaded because of the way the light's coming into the shot. It's going to be a little bit darker. I'm not lifting my pin up because it'll create a new mark since I'm working at 50%. So that's what I want that to look like. And then let's go in at 50% opacity up at the top of the couch. Not lifting my pin up. There we go. All that's working pretty good. Back, cool. What else? So this section over here, definitely want that to be shaded. Really a lot of this, the base of the cushion be shaded right here. Maybe a little bit of the light is starting to catch it. This whole part shaded. I'm going crazy with this. All right, now this part is going to get shaded too. My gosh, my couch is getting really dark really fast. So there we are. And then we've got a really great gradient and piece of lighting that we can create over there. Whew, man, that was scary. Let's have a look. So the couch right now, it's coming through. It's not overly detailed. We've got some of the lighting that's happening with it. I think the next stage is to think about that lighting that's coming into the room, and let's turn it from, and just like we did previously, start dropping down some of those colors. So we're going to take this guy, drop him down. This part, probably going to catch a little bit of the light overhanging, so we're going to drop him down. This is going to catch a little bit of light coming around the edge, so we're going to drop him down. This one stays the same. What else can I do? So it looks a little messy down at the base there. Go in. Yeah. All right. Oops. Okay. All right. It's weird, but it looks better than it did. So now let's think about that ambient occlusion. I'm working at 100% again. Let's go back over with one more shade here. Oops. normal 63%, and pull some of those shadows into the area where we know the light absolutely is not going to reach, and be a little bit more confident with those shapes that we're drawing. That feels good to me. We also know that the light isn't really going to reach down here at the base of this guy. Let's just, even though he's off the ground, we're going to use that to ground him. We've also got another little corner here where no light is really going to reach to. There we go. And that is the little piece that this couch really needed to feel realistic. So now it's starting to feel like something out of a catalog. We've got a lot of highlight that I can create on it. Once I get the pillows shaded, it's going to look even better. The couch is showing up over here as well, but we just got a lot done with one color. That color, that is pretty dark for the piping line. But let's go in and let's keep pushing forward. That might be something that I adjust later on, getting towards the end of this scene. But let's do the other two couches that are in here. So we got a little bit of couch right over here. I grab them. So I can see it again. Wow. Yeah, would not have guessed that's where the lines were at. Glad I turned that on. I was about to do something completely different than the sketch. Where's the layer I'm working with? There it is. All right. So you could get into, this line is further back, and we're creating, what you call it, atmospheric perspective. So maybe this line doesn't need to be quite as deep or as dark as the other one. It's debatable. Yeah, and I think there's wiggle room in here, and this is why I'm creating my deep shadows, or my definite line work, and then the secondary layer separately. So we'll mess with those in a second and make them look too. If they feel like they're shouting to me or it becomes too dark, then I'll adjust it. Okay. So that is just the other one at 47%. Okay. Pretty far down. There we go. Underneath that layer, 47, 46. That'll work for me. And we ended up shading all this stuff in. This got shaded. All this stuff over here got shaded. Not lifting my brush up. Okay. And then we're going to go to 100 because we found out that, yeah, there's a whole little piece down here that isn't going to catch any of the light. That's looking good. I ended up taking one of these colors, pressing it across the bottom right there. Let's do a little bit of it just at the top as well. Okay, that looks good to me. Let's do the paint mode on clear. There we go. I think it needs to be quite up at 100%. That's all right. And now let's turn it off of clear, back to normal, opacity 54. Cool. Let's zoom out, have a look. And yeah, in that area, that does feel a little bit dark. So let's turn down the opacity. And I think that's going to do us at 68%. It's not quite as screaming. It's still there. We've got a lot of contrast and other things that we're going to do within the foreground. So we're keeping in mind that atmospheric perspective, and that's why I'm turning it down just a little bit. And then we've got this couch here in the foreground of the middle right shot. Fortunately, that's the last place that we see this couch. I can feel myself starting to get in a bit of a rush. So I'm going to take a break here in a moment. And that's always a good thing, you know. When you're doing this, it does take a lot of brain power and giving yourself a break every now and again to refresh your eyes and refresh your hand and just look at something else for 10 minutes or so really does help a lot. Get those pillows a little bit more of a shadow here just to make them a little bit more interesting. There we go. I like it. And then, yeah, just for the sake of keeping this in line with everything else we've done, we're going to give that a line too. That's going to be our dark stuff. Let's go ahead and turn it down to 47%. There we go. Nice. That's all going to be totally shaded. So I guess I can add a little bit of it here, and we're going to drop it down even more. So let's go ahead and turn it on to clear. We're at 47%. That's where I want to be. Giving that just a little bit more shade, a little bit more light as we get out of that corner. And let's go back to the corner, 47%. Oh, we're still on clear. Darn. Normal. So we always know that wherever the different planes meet, we can add a shadow. So my underlying line is looking a little bit too strong now. Sorry, my dark line that I created on the top layer. So I want to soften that just a little bit. There we go. That feels pretty strong. With the highlight, I think we're going to be in a good spot for this couch. So let's give it a stop. And let's just, before I stop this video now, let's have a look at what this thing looked like with the before and after. Hmm. Okay, there we go. So yeah, you can see what a big difference this makes for those big blank areas in the top left-hand shot of the floor as well as the wall, softening out some of that super contrast that's going on with the greens and the blues for the shadows, as well as the purples on the reds. We're creating a consistent shadow approach throughout the room. We've still got the highlights to go within this. That's going to make the lighting just come to life even more and feel a lot better. But yeah, you can see on the rug within the ground on the one over in the left hand. Well, sorry, I'm using a previous example here. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's where it was before, without the details on the rug and stuff. But you can see the way that shading's starting to come together. There's definitely some more stuff that I need to do with the highlights on that back blue wall to really make it come through. And I'm going to continue working through this, um, and get the chairs completed in there, get those pillows on the couch done, get some more shading happening on the typewriter. And yeah, this shading pass is going to continue to move quicker from here. But we've made the big decisions. The top left picture, the stuff within the kitchen, that's going to look a lot different. And once we get the highlights in there, that's going to look pretty nice as well. But it's come together. So for now, I'm going to stop this recording, and yeah, we'll keep working through this evening in a little bit. Whew, that was a lot. All right, I'm going to take a 10-minute break. I'll be back in a sec. Alrighty, so I am gonna stop painting and start uploading these videos. And the second part of the commentary, I kind of fell off at the end here, but here we go. So from the sketches to the flat coloring with the base objects, moving day, then you put the objects on top of the bigger objects. Each one of these steps, I'm working from the back to the front all the way through. So still keeping the same techniques that we used in the previous environments. Now I'm starting to add a little bit of shading, or no, sorry, this next one, I'm adding some of the details onto the objects. You can see the windows and the pattern arrive between here and here. And now the next one, I'm going through and putting my shading in. So you can see what a dramatic change that is on the walls and how things are starting to come together. We're getting some of that lighting within the shot and within the scene. I still have not put any highlights in here yet, but we still got some more fun stuff to be able to do. Once I start adding those highlights in here, it's really going to start to pop. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this comes together in this next stage. Once you get it to this level, it starts to become really cool. I'm going to do another pattern on the center um, sofa pillow as well. And then I've got the church to go in and render still, which should look pretty nice once I actually get it finished. But yeah, that's a pretty dramatic difference there. Can see how it was looking previously. Now that we're starting to add some of that lighting in there, how much the forms are starting to make sense in each one of the individual frames. If you take a second and look at it, it's starting to really work on their own as their own composition. Got a lot of rendering still to do in the kitchen area in the top left one. The one on the right, there's a lot of details to go through and do on the typewriter. The middle left one, got to figure out that mirror and the typewriter, and then there's some more lighting to do on the wall for the wall mural, and I want to go in and add some more colors within the wall mural as well, so it looks a little bit more rendered. The one in the middle right, got to figure out the picture on the wall, and then the pillows on the couch, that typewriter again. Bottom left, lots of great work to do on the cathedral type shape. And then the bottom right one, I still have to figure out what's going on the inside. So what is that going to look like when the character steps out on the balcony from the interior? Uh, yeah, I think I've got some options and some room to play, but I need to first figure out what color the couch is going to be with its highlight on it, and then I can start adding in some of the visual elements from the room very softly on the inside, just to give an idea. Definitely needs to have some of the green in that final shot that's so prevalent within all the other ones. But yeah, overall, I think this is a cool example of using a limited color palette and stylized rendering, but going through and then still keeping just a few of the ingredients from formal painting perspective and keeping the sense of lighting in there in sort of a realistic manner. And yeah, it's coming out to be a pretty cool illustration sequence and group of background art. Oh yeah, one more thing. It's a great one to end it on. I got to make that cookie jar bigger. If that cookie jar was actually that size, that would be like the smallest cookie jar in the entire world. So the cookie jar is definitely going to get bigger as I start to work my way towards the front. I'm not going to forget about that. So yeah, see you in the next video. And as for you guys that are still in here, if there's anything I can